Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are continuing our Christmas card series for 2025, our 12 cards. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, I'm not even sure. Anyway, I purchased this particular die set from In Love Arts, and this was the packaging that it came from, or that came with it. It was Coca Rosa, but there's no like specific name for this die set that I could see. I just kept that in there because the packaging was kind of cute and it clued me into who I bought it from. So anyway, it just has these very like small sized abstract modern-y trees. And I liked all of them except for that one in the top left. I didn't like that one. So I cut those out from some HAMMERMILL cardstock. And I just went through my stash of dark colored cardstock and pulled some out. And I ended up having enough to make 12 cards. And I'm going to put 4 trees four trees per card, and then kind of the sentiment in the middle. The colors I have here, one is from Woodstock and it's called MALVA. That's that one on the far left. There's Colorplan CLARET, I think it's called, Racing Green, Sapphire, Amethyst, and then Lessebo, there's Amazon and Evergreen. I get all of my cardstock from Cardstock Warehouse. I find that that is the best bang for my buck, and I do find that I like the quality. This is Altenew's Rose Gold Embossing Powder, and I am going to use that to kind of give me a deeper goldeny color. I think this stamp and die combo is from Simon Says Stamp, and I think it was a collab with Kathy Zilski, but I am not entirely sure. If someone knows, please put that in the comments. I'd really appreciate that. But I really like that it has dies for everything in here, except for like the little filigree thingies, the little teeny tiny stamps. There's none there for that, but there are for all of the greetings, which is wonderful. I have just scraps of HAMMERMILL cardstock that I'm going to go ahead and emboss in. I'm going to treat it with my anti-static powder tool, then stamp it with Versamark embossing powder, sprinkle on the rose gold embossing powder from Altenew, and then heat set. And I will repeat that through all of these steps. I found these cards to be very, very quick to make. The longest and most tedious part was the die cutting of all of the trees. This would be a card that if you needed to put something together super fast, it would go super fast. If you needed to mass produce, this is one that is very easy to mass produce also. I was really pleased by the design that kind of came in my head. One of the things that I will mention is that this is also a very forgiving design. So if you like splatter, go for it. It looks like snow. If you are not into splatter and just prefer that kind of cleaner, I guess more modern and graphic look, then it can lend itself to that also. I just grabbed a piece of scrap copy paper and am just throwing on the embossing powder on that, and I will either sprinkle it on directly from the little jar there, or I will dip it into the powder that's already there until I get everything covered. I'm going to do all of this stamping at one time, and then I will do all of the heat setting at one time. I will do all of the die cutting of this sentiment at one time. That really does speed up the mass produced process. However, if you were just doing 1 or 2 cards, this isn't necessarily, these tips would work for you too, I guess you could say. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, folks. It's getting to be later in the evening in my bedtime. To minimize warping, I did let my heat gun heat up quite a while, and also I find that I get a better heat embossed image if I heat from the back side of the paper instead of directly onto the embossing powder. I have just experimented with how I craft and my environment, my climate, the paper I use, I don't know. But I have found that for me, I get better results when I heat from the back, and then to set the embossing powder, I find that I get better results that way. But you do you, maybe you need to experiment. If you are finding that you're not happy with your heat embossing results, maybe try heating it from the back. Once that was done, I did take those off screen and ran them through my die cut machine and die cut those out with a coordinating die. I also folded and scored all of my card bases you will find in the end of this video that I must have cut those super weird because they were really weird. They were really weird. Also, I did cut down the colored cardstock panels to 3 3/4 by 5. I wanted there to be a fairly decent sized border all the way around these. Actually, I cut them to 4 by 5 1/4. Yeah, because I wanted there to be a good like border around them, or a sliver of a border. So here I'm just going to kind of lay out all of my trees. They've all been die cut. My greetings are good to go. I did put some foam strips on the back of those. I got mine from Amazon and I've been really pleased with them. There was tons in a package. They were really cost effective and inexpensive. The backer comes off very well, but I find that they are also sticky still. So I've been very pleased with them and I got them off of Amazon. So I'm just going to go through and lay all these trees out, get an arrangement that I am happy with, and then I'm going to actually start to glue those down just with some liquid adhesive. These are fairly fine lines. If you wanted to, if you were thinking ahead, I would recommend cutting these out from like sticker paper or putting a double-sided adhesive on the back of them before you die cut them, because that would make them a sticker and that would be so nice. But I, true to form, did not think ahead. And so I had to put liquid adhesive on the back because I have discovered that my Xyron sticker maker is just, it's not working when there's really fine details on the insides of things. I can't get the adhesive to come off of the sheet very well. And so I get little stringy adhesive bits and I hate that. And I did not want to do this 48 times and have to deal with that 48 times. So what I did is I took some of my glue and a scrap piece of copy paper again, and I just squeezed out a healthy dollop of it. And then I took my reverse tweezers and would dip it into the glue and then tap it off on that paper. And then I would glue it down. That worked much nicer. I didn't get so much glue oozing out. I did get it on my fingers, and on some of this darker colors, I tried to like erase it away and it just didn't work. And I'll show you kind of my cheater and cut around method for that. So that these cards looked, complete. So I'm just going to go through and repeat this process. I have everything laid out already, and I'm just going to dip them into the dollop of glue, tap off the excess, and then stick them to the cardstock. I am doing them in a kind of a grid pattern because I thought that that would look really nice, and that was kind of the look I was going for. And so I will just rinse and repeat. We're just going to continue to do this on all 12 of our panels here. Something else you could do is you could always spray these with a spray adhesive and glue them down that way, but this worked just fine for me. I'm going to remove the backer from our sentiment strips here and use my reverse tweezers just again to keep my fingers out of the way so I can see a little bit better where I'm going, and I will stick these down. And that will be, you could leave them like this and just glue them down flat to your card base. But like I said, on some of these darker colors, I found that I had glue that just wasn't going away. It was very visible. It stuck out like a sore thumb. And so I needed to come up with some way to kind of disguise that. And so we're going to splatter these. If splatter is not your jam, just be really careful with your adhesive. This is some acrylic paint from FolkArt. It is Wicker White, and I have taken more scrap copy paper, covered up my greetings because I really didn't want to get splatter all over those and make them more difficult to read. In hindsight, this was actually kind of a happy accident because it left kind of like a blank spot right where the sentiment was, and it looked kind of cool. So conversely, if you didn't want to, rip off, pieces of scrap cardstock or copy paper or whatever, you can just take the sentiment and lay it back on top of the greeting, the die cut, and use that as a mask for yourself. Or you can cut out several masks, especially if you have the die set, coordinating die set, that would be an option as well. I've just taken a small dollop of that Wicker White acrylic paint, added a squirt or so of water and swirled that around. onto an acrylic block. I find that I like my splatter effects much more when I use an acrylic block in this fashion. I find that I get finer results, and I just like the effect and the control I have with this way of applying splatter as to other methods that I have found and have used in the past. This method I picked up from Christina Werner, and it works beautifully and I love it. So when I'm happy with the splatter, I will remove the little mask I have, and I will do this on the next 6 cards and set them under a fan in my craft room to dry. When that is done, I am taking that same liquid glue and gluing them flat to the card base. Here is where I discovered that I must have cut something really, really weird. I'm just gluing those down flat, and then I will take my guillotine trimmer and trim everything down to where it has even borders all the way around. If you wanted to, you could add some foam tape to the back of your panels here and pop those up. Or if you want to kind of keep things flat and very mailable, this is the way to do that. Just glue everything down flat directly to the card. I have some A Colorful Life Designs satin matte gold sequins here, and I'm gonna put these at the top of the tree, kind of like a tree topper. This color I felt really matched that rose gold embossing powder from Altenew really well. I did try like a gold bauble from Pink Fresh Studio, and where I liked the dimension of the bauble, the brassy kind of yellow gold kind of, in my opinion, clashed with this kind of richer gold that we had in the embossing powder. So I decided to go with these. I felt they coordinated really well. I'm just using a dollop of that same liquid glue and putting a dollop at the top of the tree, and then placing those with my little jewel picker there. And again, rinse and repeat. I'm going to put all the card bases down flat, put all of the trim them down to where they have normal people borders, and then add my little sequin toppers. Once that's just done, these cards are complete. So I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope you felt inspired. And if you've missed any videos in the series, I hope you go back and check them out. Until then, we'll see you next time.